Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm E.G. Stone, and this video is a Wednesday Reads. This week I read The Vorbing, a book by Stewart Stafford. It is meant to be a sort of vampire creation myth battle thing, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't care for it that much. As far as storyline goes, I think it's just perfectly fine. This is a boy about 18 years old who is trying to come to terms with the fact that vampires killed his dad and are terrorizing his village, and he is going about and seeking revenge for that. And along the way he gets exiled from his village. He goes and meets up with a knight, and he then comes back, and it's sort of a holy crusade against the vampires, and that's great. I love it. However, the execution of that story was a bit... it was kind of tough to swallow. It starts off with a lot of exposition, explaining what the vampires look like, what Vorbing was, their feeding process. It explained sort of where they live, who their leader was, what happened when you went out and were caught by a vampire at night, and why they only terrorized this one village. And so it was a whole lot of exposition, which is fine. Exposition is great, but it sort of didn't stop. And we got into the main story where this woman and her husband were running from the vampires, and the husband got caught and the baby got taken, and I felt like I was just reading more exposition, and it dragged, honestly. So then we got to meet the main character, Vlad, and he was great, well described, and the exposition just felt like it continued. There was a lot of extra information about, oh, Vlad was so very fond of his mother, and he had spent ages doing X and Y when he was a kid, and his dad would do X and Z when he was a kid, and so they had problems therefore, and this was not relevant to the story at all. Okay, it might have been relevant to character development, but I didn't need to know this about his childhood. I needed to know what he was thinking right then and there. And so that was a bit kind of tough to swallow. And I feel like that didn't really stop until about halfway through the story. I felt like a lot of the explanation of creatures and people and events, it just had a lot of background knowledge that I didn't need to know for this story, that I could have done without, and so that was a bit tough. The other thing was that the characters fell a bit flat. I was constantly told exactly what Vlad was feeling and what everyone else was feeling, and that's great. I do need to know some of what the characters are feeling and thinking, but I don't need to know everything. I want their actions to show me more than what the actual writing tells me, and so that was a bit flat. Unfortunately, the dialogue didn't help much because most of the characters spoke very similarly to one another. It was very formal language, which is perfectly fine. I am all for that because it was set in a time period where formality was expected, and if you didn't speak a certain way, then you were considered, lesser or not intelligent or just not even part of society, and you were shunned. And that's perfectly great. I am fine with formal language. But when you make everyone sound and talk the same, then it doesn't really give me a chance to get to know each character through what they're saying. They spout the same information, they tell the same stories, and they speak exactly the same. And that's, again, it makes the characters a bit flat. Now, as far as the story goes, halfway through the book, once the exposition sort of stopped, we got really into the heart of the matter with the vampires, I was very interested. I liked the fact that there was religious mythos kind of brought into this, and so the idea of the vampires being demons from actual Christian religious mythology was really interesting and very much made sense. However, the the idea of a holy crusade and, so this Deus Ex Machina kind of taking over the whole story, it felt like the first half of this book and Vlad's experiences and his thoughts about revenge, they all sort of didn't matter. It became very much by the hand of God, I must do this because it is now a holy mission, and my own feelings and desire for revenge don't matter, and this whole concept of me taking in the darkness, they don't matter, and one enemy making me strong enough to defeat the other, that's irrelevant because it's not my work, it's God's, and that's great. I get the whole religious concept, but you have to start that from the beginning and give the character more struggles as opposed to just automatically, as soon as you realize that the vampires are actual demons, instead of having that be the case, make it a struggle. Make the character doubt himself, doubt his faith, and that never happened, and it felt a little frustrating. On the whole, I think this story could have been a lot better. The storyline was great. The characters have potential, but the reality is that the execution of the story and of the characters just fell a little flat. And so my instinct is that the next book in the series is going to be better, simply because you already have the exposition out of the way and the situation is already set up and you don't need that background knowledge, and therefore it's probably not going to be present. So I think the next book in the series is going to be better, and so if that's the case, then you can sort of gloss over most of this first book and move on into the next book, which I am interested to see. So if you're keen on this, go ahead, give it a go. Let me know what you thought. I'd really like to know if it was just me. Maybe I just wasn't reading it as I should be doing. But that was just my opinion. So I will leave all of the links to Stewart Stafford's social media and books in the description below, and you can go have a read for yourself. I got this book on Kindle Unlimited, so if you're subscribed to that, it is, free with your subscription. So go have a look and let me know what you think. So that was the Vorbing and my thoughts on this week's Wednesday reads. If you are interested in having your book reviewed, please let me know. All of my links are in the description below, and you can send me information and I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. In the meantime, I hope you have a good week. Bye.